The airport buzzed with the usual chaos. Passengers hurrying to catch their flights, families saying emotional goodbyes, and airline staff moving swiftly through the terminals. Among the crowd stood Captain Maya Reynolds, dressed sharply in her pilot uniform, her wings pinned proudly to her chest. She had worked tirelessly for years to earn her position as a senior pilot. But today, as she approached the airline's crew counter to check in for her flight, something unexpected happened. A uniformed staff member glanced at her, eyes narrowing slightly. "Passengers need to wait outside until boarding begins," he said curtly, barely looking up from his screen. Maya frowned. "I'm not a passenger. I'm the captain for this flight." The staff member's expression didn't change. He studied her for a moment, then scoffed. "Nice try, ma'am, but the crew area is for staff only." His voice carried a mix of disbelief and dismissal. He turned back to his computer as if the conversation was over. Maya felt a wave of frustration rise in her chest, but she remained calm. She had encountered situations like this before. Moments when people questioned her ability, her authority, and even her right to be in the position she had worked so hard for. She knew exactly what was happening, but it never got easier. She took a deep breath. "I am staff," she said firmly. "I am the pilot of this flight. Now, if you could kindly check my credentials, I'd appreciate it." The staff member hesitated, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. But instead of checking, he shook his head. "Listen, I don't know where you got that uniform, but real pilots don't just walk up from the main terminal. If you're lost, security can help you find your gate." Maya clenched her jaw. The sheer arrogance in his tone, the way he dismissed her without even considering her words, it wasn't just frustrating. It was humiliating. Passengers nearby began to notice the exchange. Some paused mid-step, their eyes shifting between Maya and the staff member. A few whispered among themselves, their expressions ranging from curiosity to discomfort. Maya reached for her ID and pilot's license, placing them firmly on the counter. "Check them," she said, her voice steady but sharp. The man hesitated, then finally picked up her ID. His smirk faded as his eyes scanned the information. A flicker of realization crossed his face. Then, as if trying to cover his mistake, he forced a stiff chuckle. "Oh, I see. My mistake. You're really the pilot." Maya didn't smile. She didn't laugh it off. Instead, she held his gaze, her expression unreadable. The damage had been done. But what happened next? No one, not even the staff member, could have predicted it. Because within minutes, Maya wasn't just proving she belonged there. She was about to bring the entire company to its knees. Maya took her ID back without breaking eye contact. The staff member, now visibly uncomfortable, shifted in his seat and cleared his throat. "I didn't mean any disrespect," he muttered, suddenly trying to sound polite. Maya knew this type well. People who only apologized when they realized they had no choice. But she had no time to dwell on it. She had a flight to command. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the crew entrance, her polished shoes clicking against the tile floor. As she made her way through security, her mind raced. This wasn't the first time she had been questioned, doubted, or made to feel like she didn't belong. The aviation industry wasn't always kind to women pilots, especially black women pilots. She had heard the whispers before, seen the raised eyebrows when she entered a cockpit. But today felt different. Something about the way the staff member dismissed her so quickly, the way he was so sure she wasn't the pilot, stuck with her. Was it just ignorance? Or was there something deeper happening within this airline? She arrived at the crew lounge where her co-pilot, James Carter, was already waiting. James was one of the few colleagues she trusted. They had flown together before, and he always treated her with the respect she deserved. But as soon as he saw her face, his brow furrowed. "What happened?" he asked. Maya sighed, setting her flight bag down. "Got told to wait outside when I tried to check in. The guy didn't even bother looking at my ID until I forced him to." James exhaled sharply. "You serious? Dead serious?" He shook his head, his expression darkening. That's messed up. But are you okay? Maya nodded, but inside she wasn't sure. It wasn't just about her. If she was facing this kind of treatment as a senior pilot, what was happening to younger pilots trying to make their way up? Flight attendants. Ground crew. How deep did this go? As they prepped for the flight, Maya's mind kept returning to the incident. She decided she wouldn't let it slide this time. Maybe she had brushed off moments like this before, but today, something told her to dig deeper. Once they were in the cockpit, running through pre-flight checks, an unexpected knock came at the door. A senior airline executive stood outside, looking uneasy. "Captain Reynolds, could I have a word?" Maya exchanged a glance with James before stepping outside. The executive lowered his voice. "I heard there was a misunderstanding at check-in." Maya crossed her arms. "That's one way to put it. We take these matters seriously," he said quickly. "If you want to file a report—" "I don't just want to file a report," Maya interrupted. "I want answers. I want to know if I was singled out or if this is a pattern." The executive hesitated, then forced a tight smile. "Let's talk after the flight." Maya studied his face. He was nervous. And that told her everything she needed to know. Something was being hidden. And she was going to find out exactly what. Maya nodded slowly, watching the executive's forced smile. He wanted to brush this under the rug, keep things quiet. But Maya wasn't going to let that happen. She returned to the cockpit, her mind racing. James glanced at her, reading the tension in her face. "That didn't look like a friendly chat," he said. "He's nervous," Maya replied, strapping in. "Like he knows something I don't." James let out a low whistle. "You think this is bigger than just some ignorant gate agent?" "I think it might be." The flight took off smoothly, and for a while, Maya pushed the incident to the back of her mind, focusing on her job. But during the cruise portion of the flight, she found herself glancing at the passenger manifest. She had flown this route before. It was usually business travelers, families heading on vacation, the occasional celebrity. But today, her eyes landed on a familiar name, Arthur Branson, the airline's chief operations officer. Maya frowned. Branson was high up in the company, too high to be taking routine flights. So why was he on board today? Coincidence? Or was he here because of what happened at check-in? She decided to find out. After setting the plane to autopilot, she stepped out of the cockpit during a break and made her way down the aisle. Branson was seated in first class, sipping a drink and scrolling through his tablet. He looked up as Maya approached, his expression unreadable. "Captain Reynolds," he said smoothly, setting his tablet aside. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Maya smiled politely, but there was an edge to her voice. "Didn't expect to see you on this flight, sir." Branson chuckled. "I like to check in on things from time to time. Keep an eye on operations." Maya didn't believe that for a second. "Funny. I had a little issue with operations today. Thought you might have heard." Branson tilted his head. "I heard there was a misunderstanding." Maya crossed her arms. "That's the second time someone's used that word." Branson sighed and leaned forward slightly. "Look, Maya, I respect you. You're one of our best pilots. But you know how things are. Sometimes people make assumptions." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "And you're okay with that?" Branson's expression didn't change. "We can't control every interaction. But we can handle things internally." Maya narrowed her eyes. "And by handle, you mean cover it up?" Branson's jaw tightened, but he smiled again. "I mean, let's not turn this into something bigger than it needs to be." Maya stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Got it." She turned and walked back toward the cockpit, but her mind was already forming a plan. Branson wanted this to go away. That meant there was more to it. She just had to find out what. Maya returned to the cockpit, her pulse steady but her mind racing. She had flown hundreds of flights, handled emergencies, dealt with mechanical failures, turbulence, and difficult passengers. But this was different. This was a quiet battle, a conflict hidden behind polished smiles and smooth corporate talk. James glanced at her as she sat down. You found something, didn't you? Maya exhaled, staring straight ahead at the endless sky. Branson's here for a reason. And he doesn't want me asking questions. James let out a low whistle. That's never a good sign. Maya nodded, tightening her grip on the controls. If Branson was trying to brush this off, it meant there was more to uncover. But she didn't have much time. The flight would land soon, and once they were on the ground, she had no idea how far Branson and his team would go to silence her. She had to act now. A plan started forming in her mind. She needed proof, something she could use if the airline tried to deny what happened. She reached for the radio, switching to the private channel used for internal communications. Ground control, this is Captain Reynolds, she said, keeping her voice professional. Can you confirm who logged my check-in this morning? There was a short pause before the voice on the other end responded. Checking now, Captain. We don't have a record of your check-in at the crew desk. It looks like it was manually overridden. Maya's heart pounded. Someone had erased the record. She exchanged a glance with James, who looked just as alarmed. This wasn't just an oversight. Someone was trying to make sure there was no evidence of what had happened. She took a deep breath. Can you see who authorized the override? Another pause. That information isn't available on our end, Captain. You'd have to check with corporate. Maya's jaw tightened. Course. Branson's department. She cut the radio and sat back, her mind spinning. They erased my check-in. James shook his head. That's not an accident. No, Maya said. It's not. A quiet tension filled the cockpit. Outside, the sky stretched endlessly in all directions, peaceful and undisturbed. But inside, Maya knew she was getting closer to something big. She wasn't just dealing with one rude staff member. She was dealing with a system that wanted to keep people like her out. And whoever was behind it was powerful enough to make records disappear. The intercom crackled. A flight attendant's voice came through. Captain, Mr. Branson is requesting to speak with you in the cabin. Maya's hands curled into fists. Course he was. He knew she was digging, and now he wanted to stop her before she got any further. She glanced at James. Think he's getting nervous? James smirked. I think he's terrified. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stood. This time she wasn't just asking questions. She was about to get answers. Maya stepped out of the cockpit, her pulse steady but her mind sharp. The cabin was calm, passengers lost in their own worlds, some sleeping, some watching movies, others sipping drinks. But none of them knew what was unfolding behind the scenes. None of them realized that the man sitting in first class wasn't just another passenger. Arthur Branson sat with an air of quiet confidence, but his fingers drummed lightly against his armrest, a subtle sign of unease. He looked up as Maya approached, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Captain, he said smoothly, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. Please have a seat. Maya remained standing. I prefer to stand. What do you need, Mr. Branson? Branson exhaled slowly, adjusting his cuffs. Look, I get it. You're upset. And I understand why. This morning's incident shouldn't have happened. Maya raised an eyebrow. Incident? Branson tilted his head. Misunderstanding. Maya folded her arms. Let's drop the word games. My check-in was erased. Someone tried to make it look like I was never there. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a cover-up. Branson's expression barely flickered, but there was something new in his eyes, something calculating. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. I'd be careful about making accusations like that. Maya didn't flinch. And I'd be careful about trying to erase people who don't fit into your system. Branson let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. You're a talented pilot, Captain Reynolds. One of the best we have. But you need to understand how this industry works. Maya's fingers curled into fists at her sides. "Oh, I understand exactly how it works." Branson sighed, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the table between them, tapping it once. "Consider this an opportunity." Maya didn't touch the paper. "What is it?" "A promotion," Branson said simply. "A move to corporate. More money, more benefits. Less time in the air." Maya stared at him, her pulse spiking. "You're trying to buy me off." Branson shrugged. "I'm giving you an option. Step out of the spotlight, move into an executive role, and let this whole thing fade away. Everyone wins." Maya let the silence stretch between them. She could feel the weight of the offer pressing down, like a thick fog clouding the air around her. This wasn't just about a promotion. This was about control. They wanted her gone. Not fired, not disgraced. Just out of sight. She reached down, picked up the paper, and slowly unfolded it. But instead of looking at the words, she met Branson's gaze and tore it clean in half. Branson's smile faltered. Maya leaned in. "I'm not for sale." She turned on her heel and walked back toward the cockpit, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. But just as she reached the door, a flight attendant rushed toward her, eyes wide with panic. "Captain," she gasped. "We have a problem." Maya's stomach dropped. "What is it?" The flight attendant swallowed hard. "Someone's tampered with the plane's system. We might be in danger." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "Tampered how?" The flight attendant's hands were trembling as she held out a tablet. The system flagged an unauthorized override on the flight controls. "It looks like someone accessed it remotely." Maya grabbed the tablet, scanning the data. The autopilot was still engaged, but something was off. A secondary input had been logged, one that shouldn't have been possible. Her stomach twisted. Someone had been inside the system, and if they had control, this plane was in danger. She turned sharply toward the cockpit. "Get everyone seated and secure," she ordered. "No one panics." She rushed inside, slamming the door behind her. James was already scanning the instruments, his face tight with concern. "I just saw it," he said. "Someone's been in the flight system, but I don't know what they did." Maya slid into her seat, fingers moving fast. "We need to override it manually. If they're trying to reroute us or mess with controls, we have to shut it down before we lose full control." James nodded and started flipping switches. The plane responded, but sluggishly. It was as if something was fighting them for control. Maya's heart pounded as she bypassed the system, forcing a reset. The screen flickered, then steadied. And then a message popped up on her screen. "This is bigger than you, Captain. Stop now." A chill ran through her. This wasn't just about her check-in or even Branson. Someone with high-level access had been watching her, tracking her every move. And now, they were willing to put an entire flight at risk to scare her off. James cursed under his breath. This isn't just a glitch. Someone is actively trying to take control. Maya gritted her teeth. "Not on my watch." She typed in a series of commands, locking out external access. It was a risk. If she miscalculated, they could lose navigation entirely. But she knew this plane, knew its systems like the back of her hand. If someone was trying to override her, she had one advantage. She was the one in the pilot's seat. The controls jolted once, twice. Then suddenly, everything snapped back to normal. The autopilot disengaged, and full manual control returned to Maya's hands. James exhaled sharply. "You did it." Maya barely had time to process what had just happened when a chime sounded in the cabin. Branson's voice came through the intercom. "Captain Reynolds, I believe we need to have another talk." Maya's grip tightened on the controls. "Oh, I think we do." She switched to the internal communication line. "You tried to interfere with my plane. That's not just unethical, it's criminal." Branson chuckled softly. "You can't prove anything." Maya glanced at James. He nodded and tapped the screen, bringing up the system logs. They had everything, every unauthorized entry, every change made. The proof was right there. Maya smiled coldly. Actually, I can. Silence. Then Branson's voice came back, no longer smooth, no longer confident. You don't know what you're getting into, Reynolds. Maya leaned back, steady, in control. Oh, I think I do. And when we land, so will you. For the first time, Branson had no response. Maya kept her grip firm on the controls. Her heartbeat steady as the reality of what had just happened sank in. She had caught them. The airline, Branson and whoever else was behind this, had tried to silence her, erase her from the system, and now, when that didn't work, they had gone as far as trying to interfere with the flight itself. But they had failed. James let out a slow breath beside her. So what now? We land and let security handle it. Maya thought for a moment. Branson was powerful, and if he had gone this far, there was no telling what else he was capable of. We have to make sure this doesn't get buried, she said. If we just report this through normal channels, they'll cover it up. We need to make it public. James nodded. You're right. We need to go straight to the authorities. Maya reached for the radio, switching to the emergency frequency. Control, this is Captain Reynolds, requesting immediate law enforcement presence upon landing. We have a security breach involving unauthorized system access mid-flight. There was a brief silence before the response came. Copy that, Captain. Authorities will be waiting at the gate. Maya exhaled. It was done. There was no undoing it now. Whatever Branson had planned, whatever power he thought he held, it wouldn't be enough to erase this. The rest of the flight continued in eerie silence. The passengers remained unaware of how close they had come to danger, and the cabin crew followed Maya's instructions to keep things calm. Branson didn't call again, didn't try to negotiate. He knew it was over. As they began their descent, Maya looked out at the horizon, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She had always loved this part of the flight, returning to solid ground, guiding the aircraft home safely. But this time it felt different. This time, landing meant more than just finishing a flight. It meant justice. The wheels touched down smoothly, and as they taxied toward the gate, Maya could already see the flashing lights waiting on the tarmac. Law enforcement officers stood by, their presence a silent confirmation that this was no longer just an internal issue. As soon as the seatbelt sign turned off, 2 uniformed officers stepped onto the plane, moving straight for first class. Passengers murmured in confusion, but Maya didn't have to turn around to know what was happening. A moment later, she heard the officers speaking. Arthur Branson, you are under investigation for unauthorized access to flight systems and endangering an aircraft. You'll need to come with us. Branson's voice was calm but laced with frustration. This is ridiculous. You have no proof of any crime. Maya stood, turning toward him, holding up the flight logs on her tablet. Actually, we do. Branson's jaw clenched, but there was nothing left to say. The officers led him off the plane, and as he disappeared down the jet bridge, Maya felt the weight on her shoulders finally lift. Passengers began to disembark, still largely unaware of the full story. Maya and James completed their final checks, and as they exited the aircraft, they were met by a senior airline representative, a woman Maya hadn't seen before, but who carried an air of authority. Captain Reynolds, the woman said. I'm Dana Caldwell, head of corporate investigations. I need to speak with you about what happened today. Maya crossed her arms. Is this the part where you try to sweep it under the rug? Caldwell shook her head. No. This is the part where we clean house. Maya studied her carefully, looking for signs of deception, but for the first time, she saw something different in an executive's eyes. Genuine concern. We've suspected internal corruption for a while, Caldwell continued. Branson had too much power, and it seems he used it to control more than just hiring decisions. Thanks to your quick thinking, we now have the evidence we need to start making real changes. Maya exchanged a glance with James, who looked just as surprised as she felt. So you're saying? I'm saying that this isn't just about what happened today. It's about years of misconduct, Caldwell said. And I want your help to fix it. Maya had spent her career fighting for her place, proving herself over and over, only to be met with barriers at every turn. And now, for the first time, someone was asking her to be part of the solution instead of the problem. She nodded. "I'm in." Caldwell extended a hand. Maya shook it, sealing the moment. A few days later, the news broke. The airline was launching a full investigation into discriminatory practices and security failures. Branson had been suspended pending legal action. Maya's story had gone public, not as a scandal to be buried, but as a wake-up call for the industry. Maya sat in her apartment, watching the news report play on the screen. Her phone buzzed with messages, some from fellow pilots, thanking her for standing up, others from strangers who had heard her story and felt inspired. James sent a text. "Told you Branson was terrified. Glad we got him." Maya smiled, typing back. "We did more than that. We changed something." For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. She had faced the system that tried to push her out, and she had won. Not just for herself, but for everyone who would come after her. And as she looked out at the sky, she knew